My name is Hewitt Jr. I am the creator and runner of Island Breeze Media 20, and you can go to islandbreezemedia20.com, pick you up some merchandise, or you can go to kingsofthewastelands.com. I'm on here with Kirk with Two Geeks Talking, and I'm excited to be here.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We are joined today by a returning guest. He has not been on the show for a very, very long time. Last time he was on was 8 years ago, and pre-pandemic, no one really remembers what happens 8 years ago for that matter. Right. But we're joined today by the ever-talented Hewitt Jr., of course, creator of Kings of Wastelands, and of course, Island Breeze Media 20. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Let's get having you back. You know, like we were saying previously, it's been far too long since you've showed up.
I know, right? There's a lot been going on.
Definitely. And we'll definitely get to that in this particular interview. But for those that don't know anything about yourself as a creative person, and of course, as a business owner, tell us who you are and what you're bringing to Two Geeks Talking.
Yes, I am Hewitt Jr. I'm a comic book artist and illustrator. I've been drawing comics for a while. I was doing comics for other people and then they wouldn't be published. So I decided to go out on my own and do my own thing because I love it and I'm passionate about it. I've been drawing comics for about 7 years now independently. I also do a lot of, freelance work, portraits and things of that nature. I started my own company after breaking from Hong Comics to start Island Breeze Media 20, creating apparel and posters and things for my own projects, my own IP. And so I'm happy with that. I'm excited about doing it and being creative and creating new ideas, stories, and art, turning attention to things that I enjoy. So,
the one thing that I've been doing since we last talked is I've actually been editing things now. So, that's
nice.
A good thing. Yeah. So it's no longer these long-winded pauses, etc.
Editing is so tough, man. I started editing myself because I have my own YouTube channel. Nice. And you have to edit, especially when I'm doing like reviews on anime or I'm talking about these different video games and things of that nature. It is tough to edit. You have to add music and cuts and you have to be a director. And it's almost like making a comic, but it's just different because you have to know the editing software. You have to know how to create the different things you want to create.
You have to be really tight on your cuts as well, too, because, one miscut or whatever could take a word that you were trying to say it completely out.
Yeah.
And then, it just throws everything off.
What's crazy about that is you can go back and you will listen to the same area over and over again, the same loop, just to get it right. You're like, just before I said that word, cut,
And that's what I've had to do here as well, too. It's difficult with interviews like this, though, in general. And this is a little business behind the scenes type stuff is with video, it's even more difficult because, you're going to see the jarring nature of a person moving their head as they're talking and all of that other stuff. And you're just trying to link the audio cleanly together because, the ums and the ahs and the ands are always the bane of any existence.
I try my best not to do that. And it's so hard because you're so used to doing it.
Yeah.
You don't think about it until you go into the editing booth and you're like, wow, I said a lot.
Or but
yes.
And all the key horrible words that we just subconsciously say.
I don't know if you experience this, but like it's the worst when comes like right in the middle of something that you want to keep, and it's like oh
no, I just cut. I just like take out that and I piece it all together.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a lot easier that way, and it keeps the message. That's the ultimate thing, especially with interviews, especially with you doing reviews on your YouTube channel. Which, by the way, what is your YouTube channel?
It's UBO 127. I said it again. It's UBO 127 on YouTube.
Nice. It's really difficult because you get into a rhythm, you get into a flow of doing your reviews or of talking with people in general, as I do, and you eventually find that rhythm that works for you, especially when it comes to just talking about what you're passionate about, whether it's anime or comics or whatever.
Yes. The other thing too that I noticed is equipment make a big difference.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I just got a new mic, and so with my old mic,
Hmm.
I wouldn't be able to talk to you like I am now. You could hear me clearly.
Hmm.
With the old mic, you could not because I'm so soft spoken. You know, my
Hmm.
voice is real low, and so the mic just couldn't pick it up, especially at the distance it was at. But when you get a good mic, it's just like you can just
Oh.
talk anywhere. It's just free, you know.
What mic did you get?
I get the Yeti,
That's a beauty.
so it's really good. I'm very happy with it.
And honestly, and this was something, especially when I was doing when I do films and all that stuff, is you can have the best picture in the world, but if your audio is shit, it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, because nobody can hear you.
Exactly. Moving on to the creative side of things here, and whether it's your YouTube channel or whether it's as a comic creator or whether it's as making apparel that you are, what is the hardest part about being a creative person? Is it the beginning, the middle, or the end of your process?
That's a good question. Uh, Probably the middle because you're working on it and it may take you a while to complete it. For me, I know I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I want it to be like right, look good. It's the wait to bring it out. I want people to see it. I'm excited about it, but I can't tell anybody because it's not ready yet. And so to me, the middle of the process is the toughest for me because I want people to see what I'm working on, but it's not done yet.
So how does that translate to you creating apparel and your designs for that?
I don't know. I feel like apparel is almost instantaneous for me because you create the design and you like it and you put it on the apparel and then you put it on the site. So it's like for me, instantaneous almost. It's not as tough as doing a comic. A comic takes time. It's like making a movie. You can't shoot a movie overnight and it'd be good. So it just takes time to develop it. Whereas with apparel, you design it and you put it out there. So it's not the same process in my mind as it is for comics.
So how's the reaction been to your apparel? Like clothing apparel, selling that stuff has never been my strong suit whatsoever. So how's the reaction been to what you've created with Island Media 20?
I mean, the reaction is good. I won't give the illusion I'm super into apparel. I think like, I'm like you. I'm just like, it's all proud of the whole process. You can't create IP and then have product for it. You love it and it's your passion, but you need to make money off of it. You got to pay bills and things of that nature. So it's just part of the job almost. When you run your own company and you're an entrepreneur, you have to wear all the hats. So it's difficult. It's part of it that I have to do. I mean, there's no way around it. So it is what it is, I guess. It's part of the whole process.
Social media always usually plays a strong role, especially in promotion for not only clothing apparel, but also for comics and putting yourself as your own personal brand for the most part. How has social media been helping you at least get the word out for yourselves? Because I see you ever so often on Twitter posts, but I want to see more of what you're doing unless you change platform.
Well, no, I've been for years. I stopped being on Twitter mainly because I forgot my password, which is really bad. But recently, now doing art full time, you have to get on all social media. So I had to get back on Twitter, figure it out, and so now I'm posting more regularly on Twitter than I used to a year ago. So now I'm doing it more often. But social media is great. I mean, that's the way you get people to see what you're doing, and people will just call me or email me out the blue and like, hey, I need a portrait or I need this done, I need that done. Like right now I'm working on a 12-page comic for 20th Place Media,
Nice.
which is run by Carlton Harger and his brother Derek. Social media is much needed. I mean, you can't do anything, nobody will know you exist if you don't put yourself out there, period. So social media has been good to me. I'm happy with it.
Have you used TikTok yet to showcase your art process? Like that's amazing just to see that.
Yeah, I been posting on TikTok for a year, I guess now.
Nice.
And so whenever I do any kind of artwork, because on iPad Pro you can make 30-second clips, which is the exact time you need for TikTok. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as I finish the project, I'll make the little snippet and put it straight on my TikTok, which is Hewitt Jr, by the way. And you can see the process of creating these different images. So
there's a lot of creators that have been on this show actually that are on TikTok now, like Scott Christian Savin, all that stuff. And I just love seeing the artistic process because it's so amazing to see a basic concept that's just stuck right here, just come to life.
Yes, exactly. It's fun. It's definitely an enjoyable process for sure.
So then, looking at what you've created over the past 15 plus years, because you've been doing this a while, it's safe
Yeah.
to say, looking at how you started to where you currently are, and obviously your art progression and your growth as a creative person is ever evolving. What have you improved upon in your creative process from when you started to where you currently are now?
This is what I've been told from people who've seen my art. The backgrounds have gotten way better, like buildings and things happening in the back. The fact that there's backgrounds, period, like when I first started just doing like a splash page, a character, flying or doing whatever. But now there's, full fleshed out backgrounds and they're an environment and, so I'm super excited about the growth of that. But all of my process have gotten tighter and even better. So if you see my stuff, even going back and looking at the video that I did with you 8 years ago, my art has skyrocketed from back then. It's like, I feel like I couldn't draw back then. No, I could actually draw something.
Obviously, we follow similar circles when it comes to people in comics and people in
sure.
animation and everything like that. And there's some very talented people overall.
Oh,
but
man.
It's just okay. Personally, it's sickening because I'm horrible at art. But but I'd love living vicariously through these interviews through people like yourself.
I want to push back on that because a lot of people say that, but the only difference between you and me is there is talent. You have to have a little bit of talent, but also it's the work. If you put in 1,000 hours into something and I put in an hour, there's going to be a huge difference there. Like for you put in your time into doing interviews and doing, videos. And so your videos and video editing is going to be way better than mine because I don't have enough experience in it as you do. So yes, right now you may draw stick figures. That's only because you didn't draw for, years like I did, or decades actually.
Yeah, no, and definitely understandable. And if I were to take the green screen down here, you'd see my art from my time at university. But and you'd also see the mess behind me as well too. But that's beside the point. What's one part about being a creative person that is misunderstood when you talk to people that maybe don't understand the industry as a designer that you are?
Oh, man, there's so many things that's misunderstood about being a comic creator. I think the first thing is that it's just something you can do like overnight, is that it's easy to create. And then one thing about creating comics, it is so difficult. Think about it like this. Every scene, every panel on a one page is like taking a snapshot in the real world. You have to draw it as such in each panel. And that is tough. It's like a 5 to 6 medium illustrations on one page. And that's a lot of work, and so it takes time. I think if somebody just looked at the fact that I interviewed with you 8 years ago, and in that 8 years, I had 2 issues out of Kings 8 years ago, and now I'm issue 5. And I also did Ebony Kiss, and 1 issue of that, and issue 0, issue 1 of Collected. 8 comic books in 8 years. And you would think there'd be more, but it's not, because it's a lot of work, a lot goes into it. So it's not easy as people think. And it definitely, not a huge misconception about art in general, is that you can pay me $5 and that's worth my time. It's like, no, this stuff is like time consuming, and time is the most valuable thing on this planet. You have to pay me what I'm worth. I had a client tell me last year, like, I think I paid too much for this art. And I'm like, no, this is what it took to do your art. It took a lot of time, a lot of investment, a lot of referencing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that you just don't see, And so I had to explain it so that they would understand. And so I think that's a huge misconception, that is, you don't have to pay anything for it. Some people try to get you do stuff for free, and that it doesn't take any time. And those are 2 huge misconceptions. It takes a lot of time, and you should be paid what you're worth. And any artist that doesn't get paid what they're worth is just, not wise.
There's a reverse to that, is they feel that they undervalue their work because they don't think that they're worth the money that they think that they should get. And,
right.
and that's a huge aspect of why people think art is so cheap.
Yes. You're right.
Stop taking advantage of your artists. Pay them what they're worth, or else you're not going to get what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Is Kings of the Wasteland complete, or are we still creating?
No, it's still creating. I had to, because I'm the only one doing the art. So it's like I had to stop doing Kings for a minute once I got to issue 5 to work on Collectors, which is a comic that I created way before Kings. I created Collectors back in college. So 1997 was the first, conception of it. I've always wanted to complete it and complete the idea, but I just would start doing other things, It's still a lot more story to tell. So issue 5 is where they're about to reach the the second king. It's only in the second story arc. So we have a long way to go because it's like 5 kings in total. And I sent you the picture of Chidi, who's the second king. He's a lion. They're about to face him. And then the other part 2 is breaking down the power system. And that takes time as well because the power system is basically tomes or books. And that's where they get their powers and abilities from. So the story is just at the beginning. It's nowhere near complete. So I definitely will continue doing that. I just want to complete issue 1 of Collectors, which is almost done. I did a Kickstarter for it last month, and it reached its goal and creating that as well. So think of it this way. I'm doing Collectors issue 1, 12 pages for 20th Place Media. I'm also doing portraits, illustrations. So I have a lot of stuff I'm juggling at the same time. So I definitely will get back to Kings pretty soon. I'm just kind of creating an infrastructure for these different comics so that Island Breeze Media 20 will have a line of stories and books that'll be ready to be put out,
So you're diversifying your portfolio, basically, is what you're doing from a creative standpoint.
And I didn't want to get burnt out on Kings either, because after you do Kings for so many years or one project for so many years, you can get kind of burnt out. And so I want to do something different and get away from the anthropomorphic world for a minute and go back to humans and the real world for a minute and do something different. But yeah, it's going to continue. And also the business end of it as well. So for example, right now you can't get an issue anyway right now. So what I'm working on in the background is creating a situation where I can sell it on Amazon. So I wouldn't have to do anything besides post the comic on Amazon, and then people can go on there and buy it. I mean, so much in business I learned this past year. It's crazy. So even creating websites and things of that nature. Like if you go to my Kings of the Wasteland website, is a page that says shop. And even though it has all the apparel on that page for shop, is actually connected to islandbreezemedia20.com, which supplies the items for the shop from my other site. You can get everything from Kings itself. You can't see it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's linked in the background.
Yeah.
It's just figuring all that stuff out, the business end of it and how all of that works. And so this has been a huge year as far as business end of it.
That's the great thing to see, because you are creating yourself. Your brand is what you're creating. You're right. Centralizing everything into one basic location, which is the best way to do it. Because why do you want to go to 3 different sites in order to get one thing?
Correct.
What was an early experience where you learned that language had power?
Oh, that's a good question. I never thought about that before. When I learned that language had power, probably reading my first comic. Because I never was really big into novels and things of that nature, like books, but it was something about, I guess because I'm an artist, there was something about picking up illustrated version of writing or storytelling. I think that's what did it for me. And of course, later on, I got into actually reading books, but that's what really pulled me in and let me see the power of words on a paper, in addition to the illustrations, them combined, and it was the whole Dark Phoenix saga by John Byrne run was probably the first story that pulled me, and I was like, oh, I gotta see what's gonna happen. What's gonna happen next? Is she gonna kill them all, or what's Wolverine gonna do, and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that would probably be it if I had to pick one. The first book that really blew me away was that I got into it was probably Jurassic Park, the actual book, because in that first book, it actually covered the first 3-4 movies. But unless you read the book, you would never know that. Like, they had camouflage dinosaurs in that first book. Like, the stuff that it took time for technology to catch up with what he was writing back then.
The third film wasn't that great. So I'm just saying.
Well, they were trying to do Hollywood. Every scene, it had like Blockbuster or Toyota. It was about advertising and Hollywood and stuff. It wasn't about the story. The story itself has always been solid.
I guess they're wrapping up with a final movie now to kind of
my youngest son is a dinosaur fanatic. Okay. And so we've been looking forward to this movie for this whole year. So I'm taking all the kids, pile them up in the car, and we're going to go to see that movie, the final one. He's sad to see it because he loves dinosaurs. That's his thing. Trust me, I've bought him so many of those Jurassic Park figures, and that is such a racket. Like, they're so smart. There's this app that you can download, and it's like you have to collect them all. Like, if you buy the individual toy, it has an imprint on the paw that you can scan on the app, and the app will acknowledge that you have that character, and you can play that character in the game. So it's become like a Pokemon collect them all kind of thing. And it's like, for all parents, that is the toughest thing, because like you have to buy every single dinosaur. Like, didn't I just buy you that raptor? No. This is a special, edition Velociraptor. And I'm like, okay.
What you need to do is see if there's something on Reddit with these codes on the feet and see if the app will recognize those.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Wow, so smart. I don't think I'll be able to get away with that, but it would be nice to have every dinosaur in the app, I'm sure.
Just test it out, see if it works, and kind of go from there. I always find namology fascinating when it comes to comic creations and character generation and everything like that. And you've had some amazing names in the past as well too, and I'm sure you're going to come up with some more in the future. But how did you come up with the names with some of your comic characters?
With collectors, since that's recent, the main character is Bantu, and I came up with that by researching, looking at different African names and what they mean. But with kings, I didn't do anything creative. I just, named them. I just, on the fly too. It wasn't like I sat there and did any research. It was like, I'm going to name the main character Jacob. I'm going to name his sidekick Millie. She's a girl. Okay. We'll name the turtle Gib. Actually, there's a story behind Gib. I love NCSI. And the main character is Gibbs. Yep. So I kind of took from that because I like the character. So it's my homage to NCIS. For Ebony Kiss, I didn't create Ebony Kiss. My best friend did before he passed away. And so he came up with a name. But usually when I want to come up with a name, I do research on it and look and see how I could connect the story to the name kind of thing.
But what was an underappreciated medium that you couldn't get into at first when you first read it, but you appreciated it later in life?
I don't know if I couldn't get into it because I definitely was into it. I just didn't have the resources to acquire it, and that would be anime. Like, I'm a huge anime fan. I love anime. But in the Virgin Islands, I couldn't acquire it. I couldn't get it. So I would have to watch what we deemed back then as anime, which is like Messenger on the Spanish channel. I didn't understand a word of Spanish, but I just loved the art of it. And so G-Force,
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I became senior in high school, one of my friends got a hold of this VHS tape that had tons of anime on it, and I just burnt that VHS tape out. I had that for years. It had Fist and North Star on it, Vampire Hunter D, Lensman, and I would watch that tape to oblivion. I just loved it. But as far as appreciation for something, I probably have more appreciation now for music. I never really was into music growing up, but I liked it. And it wasn't until I got to high school that I got into music and hip hop and stuff like that. So like even now, working with some people to create music for collectors.
Ooh.
So I want to add hip hop to what I'm creating, you know? I also want to do animation for my stuff as well. So it's just expanding my love for hip hop and music to a different level where I connect it to my art and what I'm doing now. It'll probably be music.
You have a long-ranging goal for what you want to accomplish creatively, though.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's awesome.
At the end of it, I would love to have a full-length animated movie of Kings of the Wasteland and collectors and all the stuff that I've worked on. Like, I would love to have it animated and, you know, and have a full-length feature of it, you know. I love the fact that, I don't know if you know Sanford Green. He is a comic book artist for Marvel and DC. He's working on Spider-Verse, the second movie.
Yeah.
He has his own comic called Bitterroot, which is amazing. And he just got the green light to have it made. And they have the director for Black Panther going to direct it.
Wow, sweet.
That is a dream, you know. That's like, wow, okay, you can go to the movie theaters and see what you've created. That's incredible.
So what is your creative kryptonite?
Probably writing. I'm not the best writer. I can come up with the concepts, and I love the character designs and, you know, creating this world and world building. But to actually write a story, that's why I get other people to do it, because I'm not good at that. So that would be my kryptonite, is actually writing a story. I am in the background, dabbling in it and trying to figure it out. But, you know, I'd rather put it in the hands of somebody who has spent the same amount of time I've spent drawing, writing, you know? And so that's why I got Ken Burns to write Kings of the Wasteland, because he's a writer. That's what he does. So might as well let him do what he does and I do what I do, you know?
At what point are we good enough?
Well, that's a deep question. I don't think we ever will, at least for me, feel I've arrived and I've gotten to the point where I'm, you know, fully happy. But, you know, I think I'll relate it back to art. When I'm drawing a piece, it's hard for me to stop doing it, because I'm such a perfectionist. I want to zoom in 100 times and make sure I correct every line. And at some point you have to say, you know what, this is good. You know, I need to move forward. And so I don't think you ever would truly be completely happy with everything that's going on in your life. But I think you have to be happy enough to say, okay, I've done what I can do here. Let me move on and keep moving forward, because you can't stall and be in one spot for the rest of you. You have to grow, you know, in order to grow, you have to move forward. I think a lot of times we defeat ourselves, you know, almost a mental battle within ourselves. And I think we need to stop fighting ourselves and just move forward and do the best you can do. If it wasn't for me being happy with where the website is, then I'll be tinkling with it to this day. And it's like, I don't have time to just sit here and stall on the website. Like, I gotta keep creating, and that's what keeps me happy. It's like just creating and making something bigger and better.
How do you think the birth of creativity was formed?
Passion. You're passionate about something and you're going to create. I feel like that's how the wheel was made. It's like somebody was passionate about, hey, I need to travel. How can I do that faster? And let me invent something to help me with that problem. There's a problem that comes up and have to get in the creative juices to solve the problem. And I think that's how creativity was birthed, through resolution.
What is one mistake that you'll never ever do again in your lifetime?
Wow, that's a good one. Probably just would never doubt myself. For me, I internalize everything. And so more than anybody on the outside can, I'll beat myself up on the inside and be like, I think it's a situation where I'll never stop myself from doing what I love to do, doing what I'm passionate about doing. And I think it's eternal that we create these barriers for ourselves that don't exist and stop us from being great. The reason why people like on the history books is because they didn't stop themselves from being creative and doing what they love to do. When you asked me a question, I related back to, I remember going to Dragon Con one year. And this is probably a year before I had an interview with you. And I saw Sanford Green, who I've known him since 1997. I was visiting his booth, and he was doing comics for Marvel and stuff like that. And I was showing him my sketchbook, and he was like, you should be behind the table doing this. You know, your stuff is good. it wasn't until I got the encouragement that I actually went forward to, I can do it. I can go forward and make this happen. But before then, I was just like, oh, I'm not good enough. Stuff is just, my stuff isn't as good as that guy's stuff or that guy's stuff, And so I ended up stopping myself. And then when I made the decision to like, I'm doing this, and that's when everything just kind of took off, That's when Kings was created. It's like, I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna follow my passion, what I love to do, and not stop myself.
And here you are.
Yeah. Fear is a powerful thing, but you can't let it control you.
Definitely. It can be crippling in not only the mental, but physical aspect as well, too.
Yeah, you're right.
Everyone always asks, what's the wisest piece of advice or what's the most bullshit piece of advice that you've received? I'm going to go in a different direction. What is the second wisest piece of advice that you've received that has stuck with you in your career?
You're never too old to go after what you love to do. One of the things that was stopping me at the time was I'm like, well, I'm too old to start, making my own brand or start comics or, that kind of thing. And so for a while, I was just like working and paying bills and taking care of the family, but I wasn't pursuing what I love to do. And I think the second best piece of advice is you're never too old to pursue your passion. Go after what you love to do. And there's nobody stopping you but yourself. If it doesn't work, you'll pick yourself up and you'll keep moving. It's not the end of the world.
Everyone has one person that inspired them on their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
My first inspiration would probably be Jim Lee. For the first time I saw his work in Punisher War Journal, I've always loved his art. His art is phenomenal. And then to see him now on top of DC Comics is just, to see the journey with Image Comics and now executive at DC Comics, that's incredible. It's very inspirational, not just the art wise, but, business and professional wise, that's a huge inspiration. Definitely Sanford Green. I talked to him before. I've seen him before he got into comics, before he was with Marvel and stuff. And he works super hard, and so he got to where he is for a reason. He's an amazing artist and very inspirational. Also, inspiration for me is, I would say Stan Lee too, because he created X-Men, and X-Men is just a huge, I've always loved X-Men, Wolverine specifically. It's just amazing. So I have a lot of inspirations out there, a lot of people that I look up to and I love a lot. Also, the whole Milestone era as well. I never realized how important it was to have Black heroes, especially for growing up. All I had was Luke Cage and Falcon, Jon Stewart. To have a whole line of comics that focus on minorities being the heroes is just a phenomenal thing, Dwayne McDuffie and all the men and women that worked on Milestone is inspirational, It's just great. And actually, one of my friends from college, he challenged me to create a Black superhero, and that's where Collectors came from. That came out around that time. So just like, that to me was very inspirational. That would be my inspiration.
Because you haven't been here for so long, I'll let you have the floor. That's perfectly fine. Call it one for every 2 years that you haven't been on the show.
Right.
Next question. From a professional standpoint, you are a business owner. You are a comic creator, illustrator, graphic designer, talented individual in the arts, and you've had many successes professionally in your career from many different comics that you have created as well, too. So in that regard, you are professionally successful. Do you consider yourself personally successful?
Personally, apart from business, for me, I would say so, mainly because of my children. Like, to have 4 children and have them be amazing people and help them grow to, man, I'm about to have my first high school child. So it's just like, man, to see them grow up from babies to almost adults is professional, success. I mean, that is great. Like, it's hard to be a parent and be a creative, and then to see your kids be creative too. I have 2 of my kids are artists. They draw. It's just amazing. Like, when my daughter first received the Artist of the Year award, I was like, what? You draw? Who knew? They're my everything. I love them, and they've definitely a huge positive for me. So yeah, I'll consider my children to be a personal success for sure.
The reverse of success is failure. How do you deal with your failures?
Use it to grow. You learn from your failures, and you just, oh, next time I'm gonna do this differently. I'm gonna work on this. I'm gonna get this to be better. For me, it's about stay positive and finding a solution that will work next time. Failure isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a learning experience. That's how I take it. I don't take it in a bad way. I take it as, okay, it didn't work this time, but I'll try something different next time, and hopefully it'll work that time. I take it as a learning experience and a situation where I can grow from.
The younger generation is looking at your work and they're becoming inspired to be creative in their own way. And the fact that you've already inspired the younger generation to be artists and creative in their own way and with your kids is an amazing accomplishment in itself. How can they inspire the generation that follows them?
I remember this question.
Shit, I thought you wouldn't.
I remember this because that's such a unique question. You don't hear that, a lot.
Oh, sure. After 8 years, you remember one question out of everything that we've done.
Right.
All right.
Because when you ask the question, all I can think of is, I've heard that before. That's this.
Well, at least some of my questions stick in some people's minds. I like that. That's a good thing. It means it's a good question.
I remember that one. Yeah.
All right. And I said it so well, too. You're killing me, Swamp. You're killing me. All right.
Legacy. You need to leave something behind to be inspired by, because you're not, obviously it's that next generation that will inspire the next. And so it's about leaving behind a legacy of something that will inspire them. For example, one of my best friends from college, Bernard, passed away in 2008 from liver cancer, and I didn't want his legacy to go by the wayside. So I took his story and created, and made it Ebony Kiss, because I wanted everybody to remember him because he's such an amazing person. I didn't want anybody to forget him or his ideas and things he's created. I made sure that book was made, and that was to inspire people to know that there's people out there that you don't even know about that may have passed away, are worthy of remembering and worthy of using to push yourself forward and being creative and creating something, too.
Well, I do have one last question before we wrap up this particular interview, and I do greatly appreciate you, Dov, for coming on the show. As I said,
thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been far too long, seriously, and I'm so glad to see your progression as an artist and a creative person, and now business owner as well too. And I can only foresee greater things coming in the future for you. I believe
for sure.
So the last fun one is something that's rather interesting because you've touched upon your passion for film and you've touched upon your passion for music as well too. So this ties in very well because the question is, if your life was a movie, what would its title be and what would its soundtrack be?
The movie title would be Following Your Passion, or maybe just Passion. And the soundtrack would be a mixture of reggae and hip hop inspired songs. I have those soundtracks that inspired by the movie, it would be one of those things, one of those soundtracks. I feel like Passion, it needs to have, it doesn't have that je ne sais quoi. I don't know. I can't think of it right now. Passion, I think that's one thing that's driven me for a long time is passion. Whenever I'm passionate about something, I go after it, I do it, and I love it. I've always been passionate about art from the time I was a little kid. Even though there have been times where I've been down on myself, I have never stopped doing it. I've always been inspired to do it.
Well, Del, I do hate to say this. That ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I do greatly appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. And we definitely will do this again for sure.
Before I let you go, because this is definitely how we have to almost end the show, is where can we find you and how can we support you online and, of course, through the internet?
Well, I have a perfect answer for that. So you can go to allenbreezemedia20.com to pick up apparel merchandise. You can support channel by going to my UBO 127 channel and subscribing to there, or the Hewitt Jr. YouTube channel, subscribing to there. Actually, subscribe to both. Why not? Like, comment, subscribe to those. You can also go to kingsofthewastelands.com and check out the comic. And there's a whole store section. You can have at it, go crazy. That's the best ways to do it.
Good stuff. And like we said earlier, come back on anytime. You're always welcome here on Two Geeks Talking. Of course, you can find this interview and 1,000 plus others literally on our website, tgtmedia.com, or of course on twogeekstalking.com. Because why not have two names? It's just easier. And of course, on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/TGT Media. And that's a lot more updated than our website because I'm only one person, so give me a break. Other than that, as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.